Today on Ask This Old House. Today, we are working on a big electrical project. Now, a lot of homeowners might have to upgrade their electrical service. So we sent out our electrician, Scott Karen, to help a homeowner with just that.
Nice job. And I'm going to show you some beautiful plants to attract beautiful butterflies to your garden.
There's so much to love about butterflies. They're the kind of wildlife that lets you get up close and personal, so you can really learn from.
Today, we are working on a big electrical project, and I thought I'd ask you guys a couple questions. Roger, let's start with you. What do you know about electricity?
I know the ground is very important, and it's either green or it's bare.
No, I think you're thinking landscaping,
No,
right?
the ground.
Yeah, landscaping. Richard, let me try you. What do you know about electricity?
The hot is always on the left.
Yeah, no, I think you're stuck in the plumbing world,
The
right?
hot wire.
No, plumbing. Tommy, let me try you. What do you know about electricity?
I know enough never to mess with electricity, especially when dealing with your service panel. You always want to have a licensed electrician do that job.
See, now there's a guy who knows what he's talking about. Now, a lot of homeowners might have to upgrade their electrical service, say go from 100 amps to 200 amps. So we sent out our electrician, Scott Karen, to help a homeowner with just that.
We bought the house 2 months ago. During the home inspection, they told us to get the electrical looked at.
Okay.
The panel's right over here. I don't know the first thing about electrical, so I wanted to have a professional come in and take a look.
Okay, looks like a pretty typical panel. We have 16 circuits, Ken, and the job of the electrical panel is to distribute the power throughout the home, and it does that with circuit breakers. And the circuit breakers protect the wires from overheating, which overheating is a direct cause of fire. Let's take a look inside. The electricity travels through this gray wire inside the panel to these black wires. The black wires tie into this main circuit breaker, which is rated for 100 amps, which is the maximum amount of power that can travel into your home. It limits it automatically, so if you exceed that 100 amps, it would shut off and shut the power off to your home. You can also manually shut it off if you need to work on your home. This lever is broken, so you're no longer able to manually shut it off. That's a problem. From the main breaker, the power travels down to these individual circuit breakers. We have a 15 amp circuit breaker, which typically will control general lighting. We have a 30 amp circuit breaker, most likely will control water heater or an air conditioner in your home. And we also have a 20 amp circuit breaker, which typically will control general outlets in a dining room or countertop receptacles. They're all protected by the same means that the main is, either manually or automatic in case of an overload or short circuit. From here, there's no room for expansion. Someone tried to solve that problem by taking these two circuits, these wires right here, and attaching them to one circuit breaker, which is a code violation. There is definitely no room for expansion.
Well, in the future, we did hope to add an addition, probably put in a master bedroom, a second bath.
Well, in that case, what I'd like to do for you is remove this 100 amp panel, which only gives you up to 16 circuits, and replace it with a 200 amp panel, which will give you up to 40 circuits. That'll give you plenty of room to grow.
That'd be great. Let's get started.
So upgrading your electrical service is a big project, and it should not be done by a homeowner. It needs to be done by a licensed electrician. So what I've done is called the utility company, and I've had them come in and disconnect their wires from your home where they tie in and energize your home.
Okay, so that's why they look like they've been cut?
That's correct. Each one of these wires carries 120 volts to your house, and we can reuse them.
So there's no power to the house right now?
That's correct. I have a portable generator that I've hooked up, which will allow me to run some lights and some small power tools while I upgrade your service.
Okay.
Power company owns this glass meter, and also the wires coming in from the street. Everything else is your responsibility as the homeowner, which is this cable providing power to this metal enclosure here, which holds the meter called a meter socket. Now with the power off, I'm going to go ahead and remove this glass meter from the meter socket. Okay, now everything else left on the side of your house is going to be replaced. Okay, grab those cable cutters, make a cut right here and up here. Nice job. Now this is your new meter socket. It's rated for 200 amps. The power comes in through the top, ties onto these two terminals, goes through the meter, comes out on the bottom two terminals, and then goes through this hole. On the back, you can see there's a connector that holds the wire that goes into your house. Now the existing hole is too small for the new 200 amp wire, so I need to go ahead and drill a new hole. Now if I was to try and center the new hole exactly over the old hole, the pilot bit would wander around like that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start up high off center. Okay, at this point we've gone through the outside vinyl siding and the sheathing. We're going to go ahead and use this smaller diameter hole saw, which has an extension that'll get us the rest of the way through the house. Perfect, we're through the house. So what we have here is 200 amp rated SE cable. The SE stands for service entrance. What the cable does, it brings power from the meter socket inside your home to the electrical panel. Now I've gone ahead already and put the cable through the connector here. I'm going to flip this over. You can see that the connector has a plastic bushing which prevents any of the wires from getting chafed. And we have two wires, the conductors. They're 120 volts each. And then we have a neutral conductor which brings the power back to the pole. Now what I'm going to do is show you this flexible putty. It's called duct seal. Okay. And it stays flexible and prevents water from going inside this connector and also inside your house. So if you could, go inside the basement. I'll go ahead and pass the wire into you.
All right, I'll let you know when I'm down there. All right, send it through.
All right, here it comes.
Got it.
Gently, pull it all the way in, and that's good, Ken. So now what I'm going to do is put this level on here and make sure that it's level. We're going to use these stainless steel screws that are prepared by putting a little more of the duct seal on it, and that prevents any moisture from getting inside the meter. We'll put another one up top here. And we'll finish it off with two down below here. This is how the power used to travel into your home. Through these three cables, we have a weatherhead, which prevents water from entering the cable. Then the cable goes to the top of the meter socket. Here's your new service entrance. It's got the same three wires, heavier gauge though. And we have a weatherhead. Inside, I've added this duct seal, which prevents any water from entering the pipe. And now we have this really rigid PVC conduit. And the conduit offers the wires inside a lot more protection. However, it expands and contracts with temperature change. So we have to do a couple things. We have to add this expansion coupling right here, which allows the pipe to expand and contract with the heat. And also we add these expansion clips. Now these expansion clips, they attach the pipe to the side of the house so the pipe can move freely inside the clip. Let's go ahead and put it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and put these wires in the top of the meter socket. If you could just guide them through so they don't get hung up. Very good. So we have one final glue connection here that I need to make. And also, we're going to take the clips, we're going to put them on the house to secure the pipe every couple of feet. So the most important part of every electrical system is proper ground. These copper ground rods will ensure that the electricity always has a safe path to ground, which prevents electrocution. So I'll push this in as far as it'll go by hand, and then I'll finish it off with a sledgehammer. So we have to keep hitting this so that it goes all the way down to the ground. Almost flush, we'll leave just a little bit sticking up, about an inch. All right, you do the next one 6 feet away. It's important to have all underground utilities marked before any ground rods are driven into the ground. You don't want to hit a water line or a gas line. So we've completed burying the wire underground, which connects this ground rod to this ground rod. The cable travels underground up this conduit to this inter-system bonding termination. This bonding termination, it allows the cable, internet, and phone companies to tie in safely to your system. You can see the cable's already been installed. The wire runs up into the meter socket. Now I'm ready to connect the power wires into the meter socket. Now I've gone ahead and torqued the connections properly. The power travels down these wires to these terminals through the meter, comes out the bottom terminals, goes inside your house. The neutral conductor feeds straight through and goes inside your house. Let's go ahead and install the meter now. And the cover. Now let's go ahead and start our work inside. Normally, I would mark the wires before I start cutting them. However, the descriptions don't seem to match what the wires belong to, and they're all doubled up. So we're going to go ahead and just cut them all out, and we'll figure it out afterwards. Okay, and we have the final screw right here. And there you go. You can take that to the scrapyard. So this larger piece of wood will give us plenty of room to mount the new panel. Okay. We got the cable coming in from the outside. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. It's going to hold the cable in place. Okay. That's it. Now we're going to go ahead and level it and fasten it to the board. I'm going to take these bare aluminum wires, braid them together as one, which is going to be your neutral, and tie it into the neutral bus bar. This gel prevents oxidation on the wire. Now I'll go ahead and connect the two power wires to the electrical panel.
So why do you curl the wire like that?
We curl the wire so that it gives us the ability to bend the wire up and then reinsert it into the lug pretty easily. I'll take the cable and insert it through one of these knockouts into the electrical panel. And I'll tighten the lock nut with a couple taps. And now I'll feed each circuit into the panel pretty much like that. Now I'm going to take the bare wires, which are grounds, and the white wires, which are neutrals, and connect them to the neutral and ground bar on the sides of the panel. Now we're ready to install the circuit breakers. Remember, the job of the circuit breaker is to prevent the wires from overheating. We have 3 different size wires that come into your electrical panel. The smallest goes on a 15 amp breaker, the medium on a 20 amp breaker, and the largest on a 30 amp breaker. Now the first circuit breaker I'm going to install is a 15 amp circuit breaker. Now when I plug it in, it's going to receive 120 volts from the left side of the bus bar. This wire here is a 15 amp wire. I'm going to go ahead and install it. Tighten it down, and that's going to send power right up to that circuit. This 30 amp circuit breaker is a little different. It's a 2-pole circuit breaker. It provides 240 volts to your electric clothes dryer. So what I'm going to do is snap this in. Now it's installed. It gets 120 volts from the left side of the panel and 120 volts from the right side of the panel, giving the clothes dryer 240 volts of electricity. Now instead of just one wire, there are 2. We have a black wire and a red wire. This is your main ground wire. This wire runs out through the bottom of the electrical panel and ties onto this copper water main that comes in from the outside. I got a clamp, runs over and jumps your water meter and ties to the other side. That way there, if the water meter ever gets removed, you'll always have this important ground.
All right, so is that it?
That's it. What do you say we go ahead and call the power company, have them reconnect your service, get your lights on?
All right.
All right, now that the power company has reconnected outside, I'd like you to have the honors of turning on the main breaker.
All right, let's see what happens.
Hey, what do you say about that?
That's awesome.
All right, so we have a 200 amp main circuit breaker with plenty of room for expansion down below. All I need to do is label the breakers and you're good to go.
All right, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Glad I could help you.
I love flower gardens. When planted properly, they can provide color all season long. And not just color, but texture and fragrance. And if you add just the right plants, they can even attract wildlife. Like this garden that's designed to attract butterflies.
That's right, Roger. We wanted to put a butterfly garden here at the entrance to our visitor center so that people could enjoy not just the flowers, but the beautiful butterflies that come to visit it. And if you think about it, there's so much to love about butterflies. There's so many different kinds, shapes, and sizes and colors. They go through amazing transformations from egg to a caterpillar to a chrysalis to an adult with wings. And they're the kind of wildlife that lets you get up close and personal so you can really learn from them.
So if a homeowner wanted to have a butterfly garden like this, how would they get started?
Well, if they want to get the butterflies, they have to start with the caterpillars. So caterpillars eat very different foods from the adult butterflies. A lot of them eat trees and grasses and things that we might consider to be weeds. So about 30 feet from our butterfly garden, we've planted an area for caterpillars. We call them their host plants. And this is a spice bush. This is a host plant for spice bush swallowtails. So we should look around, and if we're lucky, we might find a caterpillar. Look, there's one right there. This is a spice bush swallowtail. And about 2 weeks ago, a butterfly laid an egg underneath this leaf, and the caterpillar hatched, and then he started eating his own home. And he's going to keep eating until he's about 2 inches long, and then he'll be bright green and have big snake eyes on his back.
So that little guy is going to grow up into a big, beautiful butterfly?
Yes, he is. He's going to be very black with gorgeous blue and orange spots. Now over here we have another type of host plant, which is a cherry tree. So this is a caterpillar of a cecropia moth, and he's probably about 3 weeks old. When he was first hatched, he was just a tiny, fuzzy, black caterpillar, and now look at him today.
He's come a long way. Look at the yellows and blues and red. He's almost iridescent.
He kind of looks like somebody just painted those colors on, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's not done feeding yet. He's going to keep eating until he's about 4 inches long, and when he decides that he is big enough, he's going to turn into a pupa. Now, moths will spin cocoons just like this and maybe wrap themselves in some leaves. He'll stay in there for a few months and all through the winter, nice long winter's nap, and then he'll hatch out in June. Now, butterflies do things differently. Butterflies make chrysalis, and what they do is they shed their last caterpillar skin. Underneath it's soft, but it hardens into a protective shell, and they spend their time changing into adults inside that shell. But when they come out as adults with those big, beautiful rings, they're hungry and ready for the garden. Adult butterflies don't eat leaves. They drink nectar from flowers. And if you want to have butterflies all season long, it's important to have flowers that are blooming all season long.
So a successful garden will have a sequence of flowers, so there's always something there for them to feed on.
Absolutely. At the very beginning of the season, things like chives and sage and even dandelions are good.
Dandelions are good.
Absolutely. They're a great butterfly plant, a weed by any other name. Later in the season, we have things like this common milkweed, which is a great nectar plant, but it's also an important host plant for monarch caterpillars. And we also have over here echinacea, also called coneflower. And look, there's a fritillary.
Look at them go.
Yeah. That one over there, it's a cabbage white.
Any significance to the 2 black dots?
Well, the 2 black dots means that it's a female. If it just has 1 black dot, then it's a male. And there's a skipper.
Oh, I can see him.
So there are many different kinds of skippers. They're all pretty much brown or orange with spots on them, and when they fly, they skip around, and that's what gives them their name.
Now I notice rather than plant individual plants, you've planted in big groups or clusters.
We have, and that helps the butterflies find their target flowers, gives them a bigger target to hit. So over here, for example, we have a nice cluster of phlox, and look, there's a tiger swallowtail. The tiger swallowtail is probably my favorite butterfly.
What's that orange one over there?
That little guy is called a pearl crescent.
Look at the color.
It's like a flash.
Now the plants are starting to get really tall in this end of the garden.
They are. We wanted to put the taller plants around the edges of the garden to shelter the butterflies from the wind.
Now this tall plant on the corner, I recognize that. That's butterfly bush.
You like that plant?
Yeah, it's a magnet for them, isn't it?
It is. The butterflies really like it, especially the bigger ones. What they like about it is not only does it have lots of flowers with lots of nectar, but it gives them a nice stable landing pad so they feel safe. This one's called an American lady, and it's got a cousin that's a painted lady, and the difference is in the hind wing you can sort of see 2 big spots. Its cousin, the painted lady, has 4 of them.
Awesome color.
Now, I wanted to show you around the edges here we have asters.
Yeah, I recognize that. And that's a native plant too.
It is. And we've got it here. This is probably the last thing that blooms in our garden. It'll start blooming in September or October.
Well, that covers a real hole when you won't have other flowers.
Yes. Now, did you notice our funny little spot over here?
It's sort of a little mud hole.
This is our puddling area. This is where butterflies come to suck mud.
To suck mud.
To suck mud, because they can't get all the nutrition they need from just nectar, so they come here and get some minerals from the soil, but only if it's damp.
I never would have guessed that. Now you have a garden here that's totally dedicated to butterflies.
We do, but if you have any kind of garden, no matter how big or small, and you put the right plants in it, you can get butterflies to come too.
Well, thank you very much for letting us visit your garden and all the great lessons.
You're very welcome.
Next time on Ask This Old House.
I'm going to install some flower boxes.
And I'm going to make them look beautiful.
Now these are made of cellular PVC. It looks like wood, but it will never rot like wood.
All right, now we can get the plants and start setting them in.
And we'll take an unfinished cedar fence and show you 3 ways to apply a new coat of stain. So we're going with a stain look on the fence. What are our choices?
Exactly. I got 3 samples here, Captain.